So whoever believes and is baptized will be saved. Whoever does not believe will be condemned. So what is this belief that Jesus is talking about? The meaning of belief, according to Webster's, is a mental act, condition, or a habit of placing trust or confidence in a person or a thing. We often refer to this stance towards life as faith, right? Having faith. What is trust? Again, Webster tells us total confidence in the integrity, ability, and the good character of another. So the question we are invited to ask ourselves, do we believe in Jesus, the Son of God? Do we live our lives trusting Him? If we truly believe, this sense of trust will flavor every aspect of our lives. We'll move through life differently because we put our trust in Jesus. Serving Him, serving His kingdom will be our primary mission. What blocks us? What hinders us from belief? What blocks us or hinders us from trusting God in life? Well, often the obstacles can be, the scriptures give us a few things. Demons. Sometimes we can be possessed by attitudes or addictions that are not of God. Could be addicted to drugs, alcohol, power, prestige, wealth, and pleasure. Foreign language, failure to understand, sometimes not seeing the bigger picture, seeing that life is only about me. So pride, self-centeredness, not understanding the language of God. We can live in fear of things that can strike us, such as losing security, because living in fear is the polar opposite of faith. Living in the fear of being harmed, our sickness, fearing death, our own mortality. That can get in the way. So one of the biggest obstacles to a vibrant faith community is living in fear. And Jesus calls us out of that fear. And He invites us to put our trust in Him. The question is, will we? Right? Come to me, all you who are weary. Find life burdensome, I will refresh you. He will take care of us. But do we believe this? Will we trust this? What are some examples of trust and belief? Well, I think a good example is the marriage bond, right? The marriage vows are first and foremost about serving God's plan, God's kingdom. And the commitment of the couple to each other is to be a sign to the world of the love that our God has for us. And how are they that sign? By living out those marriage vows, right? I, Joe, take you, Mary, to be my wife. I promise to be true to you in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health. I will love you and honor you all the days of my life. When that's lived out, that's an incredibly powerful sign of God's kingdom here on this earth. In that relationship. Belief and trust must underlie the sacramental marital commitment. Because challenges and hardships come. But if it's grounded in God, one will move through them. Another example I think of, it happened when I was in Wolf Point. There was a high school student choosing to leave home to pursue a degree. He wanted to be a nurse. And often, it's difficult for kids to leave the reservation, right? Head out on their own away from family. But she chose to leave. as difficult as it was to leave the security and comfort of her home and move into those uncharted waters. She knew that the challenges, the difficulties would come, yet she trusted that God would guide her through those challenges. Okay? Simple stance of trust and belief, right? Another example is the stance of trust and belief in people who tithe, sharing from the gifts that they've been given, knowing that God is the ultimate giver of life. Because they share from the gifts they have, their lives are different, right? It's not all about them. They're part of something much bigger. I see it, in our parish community. We started off when I came. After a couple of years, we decided to tithe a portion, of our collections, and it was 5%. And we built that up. And now we're at 10%, giving away 10% of our collections to those in need. And you see those in our bulletin on a quarterly basis. Again, sharing the gifts of our times, talent, and treasure with the needy and the poor. I see it in many people who face death. They say, it's going to be okay. That's the big stance of faith, right? And belief. They live their lives trusting God and enter into death with that spirit of trust because they've lived their lives in that space of belief and surrender, knowing they were a part of something much bigger. So the key aspect in all of these examples is the surrender of one's will to the will of God. And this stance provides a solid foundation as a person moves through life and ultimately into death. Sometimes we move forth in life, we do not really know where we are going, but at times like that, we're called to remain faithful, putting one foot in front of the other, placing our ultimate trust in God. Sometimes we can only see 1 foot ahead, right? We can't see the distant shore. But the promise of Jesus, the promise of God, is that His Spirit is with us. We only have to take the Lord's hand, and He will guide us and shepherd us as we need to be guided. So today we celebrate the Feast of the Ascension. And although Jesus physically left us, He commissioned us to go forth into the world to proclaim the good news of Jesus, to share in His mission, to share in His vision. As we strive to live it out in our lives, Jesus tells us again and again and again, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. And why? Because fear gets in the way, right? We're called to trust. Jesus says, trust in me, walk with me, and go and live and proclaim the good news of the kingdom. And if we do that the best we can, all will be well.